walk around to the front of the chicken coop, and the goats are out. They're wanting to jump up, and the chickens are staring at me. They want to get out. We do free range ours some. Not a lot, because we do work, so I don't leave them out all the time, but we'll leave them out. Days like today, we'll let them out and scratch around and free range. But the egg itself, the chickens have one working ovary, which is their left side. And in that ovary, there's a lot of little follicles that will develop. And they're already set in, different stages. And as the chicken starts to produce an egg, and this all happens in a 24 to 27 hour period, the follicle moves out of the ovary once it matures, and it's called a yolk. And once it gets out of that stage, it slips out into the infundibulum. All right, and that is basically just the part that comes right off the ovary, and it sits there for 15 minutes. That's it. They've studied all this. About 15 minutes it sits there, and that's actually where your egg can be fertilized. So if you have a rooster that is mounting your hens, he is inserting sperm. That sperm can live in that infundibulum for up to 4 weeks, live sperm.
Wow.
So if you are wanting to breed your hens to a specific rooster, don't just assume, well, if I put that rooster in with them and let him mount each hen for a day or two, and you have other roosters in, that it's going to be that rooster. Because if the other roosters are mounting 4 weeks, another rooster sperm can be in there and fertilize that egg. So, but 15 minutes is all it takes in that little infundibulum spot for an egg to be fertilized. Now, the hens, for those that don't understand this, the hens will lay eggs regardless whether they're fertilized or not, because it's just part of their reproduction. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about how that happens. Okay, so once that 15-minute process happens, the egg starts going down, or the yolk starts going down the what they call the oviduct, and it's just like it's hard to describe, but it would just be like this tube. Yet it's probably a little curvy, as it makes its channels. But just imagine if this was the yolk, it starts to travel down this tube. As it travels down this tube, it goes through different stages, and they have names for them. We talked about the infundibulum, the oviduct, the tube itself. Then you reach certain stages, and tell me about it. So it'll reach what's called the magnum stage, or the place where they call the magnum, and this is where the white of the egg starts to develop. It starts to create that white of the egg, and as it does that process, it moves further downstream, and a couple membranes are then placed. It makes its membranes, and moves further down this oviduct into a stage called the isthmus, and so and I think these are just names they give them, but they travel down to that stage, and once it gets through this whole process, it empties this basically yolk, white with small membranes, into the uterus. Okay? So it sits in that uterus like this, and that process takes about 3 hours to start from here to move all the way down to drop into the uterus. When it does, it sits in the uterus. And when it sits in the uterus, it starts to form this calcified shell. So in the next 20 hours of that 20 to 24 hour stage, or 27 hour stage, the next 24 hours or 20 to 24 hours of that 27 hour stage is forming the calcified shell of that egg. And so it starts to form, Once it fully forms, the hen knows it's time to drop the egg, and it will basically start to pass the egg. When it does, that's when it emits its little protective coating that goes over the egg, and she delivers the egg out, usually into a nesting box or into the dirt, and we have a beautiful formed egg. It takes 4 grams of that calcium that the chicken normally produces. Now you have to make sure they have that in their diet. You know, feeds that you feed them, free ranging them, however you do that, they do need to make sure they have some, you know, good source of calcium. Some people feed the shells back to their chickens, but it takes them 4 grams of calcium to make 1 egg, and they produce that in their body off of what they eat. All right, so if you liked what you learned today, if you love our videos or are more interested as we evolve around here on our farm, our little homestead, you can hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and as we learn, we'll share what we learn with you, and that's how we're doing it. You know, I didn't know this stuff about eggs till I started researching it, because I just want to know, because I don't know how many people say, ooh, that's a dirty egg. But if it is real dirty, I will tell you there's no harm in taking a dry cloth, clean dry cloth, and wiping the poop off of it. But if you do, just try to cook that egg first. If you've got good clean ones like this, they store better. Something that's really got poop on it from the chicken, wipe it off, set it to the side and say, the next time I cook eggs, I'm cooking that one first. Then you can wash it right before you cook it, and it's a done deal. God bless. And as Uncle Stumpy says, that's what my kids call him, a simple life is a much more enjoyable life.